40 chess. Yeah. 40 chess. 40 chess. Let's get it.
Yo, is that T-Dog?
40 chess. 40 chess. Hey. 40 chess. This a trade show. Patreon where the trades go. Tap in and watch. That's what you came for. Ain't gotta say my name. They know my name, bro.
What's good, man?
We got McNutted in ATM. Always start off the show with a trade from them. You should always make sure that your trade is in. Patreon, why not be a Patreon? Know you wish you could spend every day with them. Tap in and say what you gonna say with them. South Harmon can fill up a stadium. Next time you log in, make sure that you bring a friend. We about to kick off, let the day begin. Go follow the socials. 40 Chess FF is posted. If your trade is an F, you get roasted. Go like and subscribe for the crew. Apple, Spotify, and the YouTube. You know Cooper got the warp too. Let us give you a walkthrough. 40 Chess. This is 40 Chess.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back into the 40 Chess Dynasty Football Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you could do us a favor, if you're listening to this on podcast form, leave us a rating, leave us a review, let us know how you like it. And if you're watching on YouTube, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Check out all the content South Harmon's got going on. It is a daily adventure over here, and the shorts game is now becoming very popular. So if you like those 1-minute clips, go check those out. But first and foremost, there's no Adam this week. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this does not look anything like Adam at all. At all. It's Seth Woolcock from In Between Media. So kind to join and sit in for Adam, taking his place. And maybe we'll make this permanent. I don't know. Every now and then it's good to get away from Adam. It's kind of like my wife. You know, I love her to death, but, you know, sometimes we just, honey, it's not you, it's me. How you doing, Seth?
Hey, I'm doing good, Mike. Good to be here today and good to talk some Dynasty, man. Like, this is really the time of year where we kind of know who is fucking here to play, who's ready to go home and start rebuilding for next year. So I think it's a really interesting time to talk Dynasty, and no one better to do it than my friends over here at the Shitheads.
I love it. Well, we're going to do a little Dynasty Roundabout, cover a couple various topics, get Seth's thoughts and opinion on them. And then first and foremost, we gotta figure out how Seth likes to play his dynasty leagues, right? Are you one of those draft pick guys? Or are you the I'm trying to win every single year kind of person?
I think I'm very league specific. You know, I have ones where I am going, but I really do hold on to my picks, man. And when I don't have the squad, I don't have the squad. And I think I realized that early, and I spend pretty much the entire year trying to trade off pieces to acquire them. So very league specific, and hopefully that plays my favor here down the stretch in 2023.
I like it. How are your teams doing so far this year? Like, they doing okay? Like, you going to have a couple championship runs here, you think?
Yeah, the redrafts are doing pretty well overall. As far as Dynasty is concerned, I'm about split. I have 4 Dynasty leagues. 2 of them are ready to go. 2 of them I'm already hitting the tank button. I'm rebuilding. But I think those leagues are actually a little bit more fun, you know, when you can kind of just mess around with your roster for the entire year and say, fuck what's happening every week, and it doesn't bother you.
People don't. We did a podcast, actually. I think it was like something. It was titled like Dynasties Contract, Contenders Contract, Rebuilders Relax, right? Like, it's almost therapeutic just to, like, this team sucks, man. Let's hit the button. Anything that's not tied down, get the hell out.
Yes, sir.
We'll play for next year. So it is kind of weird how dynasty leagues, if you have any portfolio, even if it's like three dynasty teams, you always kind of find yourself in this weird split where you got one that you're hopeful for, one that's looking real good, and one you're going, this is a turd nugget. Let's flush this. Flush it down the drain. So even my 40-some leagues, I think if you were to look at it, it's probably 33, and 33% split amongst those. You know,
okay.
Just how it naturally happens. I don't intend for it, but it just does. Yeah. Like, okay, well, this one sucked. All right, you go into the 33% shit bucket. Just get out of here.
And I think the worst place to be is like right in the middle.
It's the worst.
You know, you're never going to get those top draft picks, and you don't know what to do, and you're kind of just in limbo. And I feel like those are the teams I hate the most, when I have no clear direction.
Right. Like I'm just barely holding on trying to get into the playoffs. So my
Yeah.
draft pick that I probably leveraged to somebody else isn't going to
Yeah.
be really good. Like, please, please just make it, boys. Seth, let me ask you, there's been a lot of news kind of going around, and the big one today that I'm trying not to lose my shit on X about is the Jalen Warren thing, right? The story came out, and the way it was written was Jalen Warren was announced the starter over Najee
Right, yeah,
Harris before the Week 10 game, which is factually incorrect, first and foremost. But Jalen Warren, the announcement, did that change anything this past week? Did it change anything on your outlook for Jalen Warren for redraft for Dynasty?
Listen, I've been rosy on Jalen Warren really since the beginning of the year. This is a guy who is really up there with the top and as far as receiving backs in the NFL right now. This season is getting targeted at a pretty crazy pace. It's come down a little bit in the last couple weeks, but this did not change my outlook at all. One, like even you said, I think people were making too big of a deal of it when he was announced over George Pickens, not Najee Harris. I think he just wanted to he being Mike Tomlin wanted to give him a little bit of a spark in his step, and we saw it, man. 19 fantasy points here in week 9. I like Jalen Warren. I think low key he's like a low end RB2, high end RB3 rest of season, but no one wants to admit it right now. Like no one wants to admit it. And I think all the managers who have him, myself included, are looking at anything that we can grab and say, hey, here's something to run on. Go take it. Let me get out of this Matt Canada offense and move on to something else here in my leagues. And so I think that's what everyone's clamoring for and why, you're feeling that way, Mike.
It's just the for me, like Jalen Warren has some appeal, and I kind of got into him late. There's a lot of people who were on him last year, and they were clamoring for it. And Jalen Warren, and the Najee hate has been prevalent for a while, right? So
yeah.
Don't let this think that I'm like some sort of Najee truther, but the Najee thing, like I'm never really too interested in Jalen Warren, for the strict fact that he still has to physically like unseat Najee Harris from that lead dog role, which hasn't ever really been the case, right? At best, we're looking at a 50-50 snap share. I mean, they've done it multiple times already this year. I don't think this really changed anything for me. It was good to see Jalen Warren actually score some legit fantasy points, which has kind of been a bugaboo for a while. But Najee Harris then just goes out and, gets 80 yards and a touchdown and a handful of catches this week too, and you go, hey, he was actually decent. For both of them, the worst part is they cap each other's value as long as they both still have this prominent role. And that's kind of the shitty thing. You're talking about Jalen Warren as a low-end RB2, high-end RB3. Najee Harris is basically the same thing, right? He's a low-end RB2, high-end RB3. I think the only place you run into trouble, and again, this is not me, but there are some people who value Najee Harris still a little bit higher, and like the drumbeat, like, he's borderline RB1. No, no, nothing you're going to look at's going to tell you that, right, Seth? Like, points aren't going to tell you that. Efficiency sure as hell doesn't tell you that. We look at our warp tool, like Jalen Warren is just above Najee Harris in warp, so both of these guys are capping each other. I just, for me, like, I saw people taking victory laps and, like, it's finally happening. Jalen Warren's the guy. And I'm going, listen, all right, just calm down here. Yeah. Calm down here. Najee Harris still out-touched him. Right? He wasn't announced the starter over Najee Harris, as some of these tweets said. It was just the simple fact that they were sending a message to old George Pickens. So that leads me to my next question for you, Seth. George Pickens, where are you at with this guy, right? He climbed to pretty big heights. He was producing earlier in the season, right? And I kind of always gave the knock to him because he never really looked like he could separate at the NFL level. Everything was like a contested catch or spectacular SportsCenter top 10 play. But the fantasy points were actually there earlier in the season, and then Deontay Johnson came back, and all of a sudden it was not good for George Pickens. The advanced analytics on him have kind of looked bad all season. What's this really mean for George Pickens going forward for you? Like, where are you at with this guy now?
Man, George Pickens, he's actually going to be a topic of discussion tonight on our podcast over at IBT Media. And he's one of those players right now. It's so frustrating because we saw the route tree. We saw maturity in his development earlier this season with no Deontay Johnson. He was running slants. He's running ins. Now it's back to goes and stacks is what we're seeing more than anything with him. And until we see something different, it's hard to want to start him in your lineup. It's hard to have a rosy outlook for the long term as well. I don't know what happens here with George Pickens because I think he is a talented player, but he's not a route. He's not a route separator. He's not a technician off the line. That's Deontay Johnson in this offense. That will always be Deontay Johnson. George Pickens is kind of like a Christian Watson, a big play machine, but he's going to have some frustrating weeks out there. And I think long term, that's kind of the outlook for him here too, Mike. And until something changes, until Matt Canada's out of there, I think it's hard to value him anything more than like a high 2024 second round pick, maybe low first round pick. I think that's probably the market for him right now. Would you give up one of those picks for him?
I think I probably would. It's league dependent, right? Like there's such a big tier of wide receivers, which are all kind of the same if you really think about it. And Adam and I and Eric and I last week on America's Game went through some wide receiver ranks. Once I get down like past 8, 7, 8, kind of in that territory, like the next 20, I could make a case for any of these guys. I really could. Like they've all had some moments. They've all had some crust on them. Some of them are just kind of propped up in dynasty terms by youth, and maybe they've had like a few highlight games, and we go, oh, that's going to be the guy, and then they go stretches where they don't do anything. I think for George Pickens, for me, Seth, one of the corollaries I like to make with him is he kind of feels like Courtland Sutton at times, doesn't he? Like we like the size, we like the athletic traits. He's made some highlight splash plays. Remember early in Courtland Sutton's days with Drew Lock. Because Drew Lock couldn't hit the broadside of a barn sometimes. Courtland Sutton's got to make some highlight, just spectacular catches. And it just never really clicked for him. And here we are multiple years later of people always kind of being a fanboy for him. And now he's actually finally doing something from a fantasy production standpoint that's reasonable, but there's no way like Courtland Sutton's worth a first to anybody anymore. It's like I'll give a second and something maybe at best.
Maybe. I've rode that Courtland Sutton train in Dynasty this season, and I shipped him off for a high third, man. I was completely rebuilding, and I couldn't get a second for him. So like realistically, you're kind of strapped with him. And George Pickens, like for his career, you're probably right. Like this is a guy, maybe he'll break 1,000 yards receiving this season. He's on pace for it right now, but barely. But you're kind of looking at a guy who that's kind of his ceiling. He's not ever going to be anything more than a 60, 70 catch guy. He's never getting it above that. So it's, high end wide receiver 2 is his ceiling. And I think we know that for sure. And I think the hype and the fanboys is kind of subsiding at this point.
I think if we just kind of pencil him into he's a wide receiver 2 and we just leave him there where it, if I can get a good deal on George Pickens, I'm going to be interested. But if it's, people are like, I need a first for him. Well, good luck to you. I'll go see what the price is on all the other potential first wide receivers around because there's tons of them. Courtland Sutton, I don't know, for whatever reason, it just fits. If you remember, his rookie year was 704 yards. Then he went over 1,000 in the second year, which George Pickens is on pace for, but it was only about 14 fantasy points per game, so nothing like super spectacular. And then it's just been a roller coaster ever since. It just feels right? They almost kind of look similar. They kind of play similar. It's nuts. So Courtland Sutton, man, that's going to be my comp. And if it turns out in a few years, Seth, we get you back on, we'll remember this. We'll clip this one forever.
Let's go. Toe drag swag, baby.
Speaking of other dynasty assets out there, like I said, we're going to do a roundabout here. Josh Dobbs. What are we doing with Josh Dobbs? Superflex leagues. Josh Dobbs has actually been a pleasant surprise in points per game and WARP fantasy production. Great feel-good story, too. Just a guy who's bounced around all over the place, but comes in to Minnesota 5 days and just goes out and gets a W. And then we had a little bit of a Lamar Jackson light version of Josh Dobbs last week. Good for fantasy. What do you think about Josh Dobbs' long-term outlook in Superflex leagues? Like, are you in, or are you kind of going, it's still Josh Dobbs?
I think everyone got excited a year ago for Geno Smith, and I think with these guys who they take a while to pop, regression's always going to come back for him at some point. I mean, if he can be the Vikings long-term starter, I think that's a different story when he has Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, and KOZ calling the plays there. I don't know if that's what comes to fruition here. I've seen that thrown out this week as some hypothesis. But look, dude, Desmond Ridder for one of the bottom feeders at quarterback. Sure, I think he's one of the 32 best. I think he's proved that so far right now. But I still think there's a ceiling for him. So I like him to go win me a chip right now. And if I'm competitive, I am buying him. But if I'm tanking it all, or if I'm in the gutter or in the middle even, I think you got to sell off Josh Dobbs for whatever you can get. Great story. I love the pastronaut, but I think there is some ceiling here.
I almost forgot about that nickname. I saw that on the broadcast on Sunday. That's just so great, the Pastronaut. I think he's a great feel-good story. I would say for this year, me specifically, if I need a little bit of quarterback help, you know how much my affinity is for best ball. Like, give me all these quarterbacks, right? Anybody who could potentially make my lineup is going to be beneficial to me. Depending on Josh Dobbs' price, don't get carried away. All right, I'm not giving you multiple seconds, but maybe a second, maybe a couple thirds, whatever. I'll get some Josh Dobbs. As far as long-term outlook, I think there's a little bit of hope for maybe 24, kind of like you were talking about with Geno. Again, with Geno, I was probably the biggest one who was cautioning Geno, because you also saw the regression late last year in the season. It was vastly different in the splits from the first half to the back half. And then we saw this year it really hasn't been that rosy. And you're talking about it, Seth. The quarterback class is deep, and I know they gave Geno a contract in the offseason, but this is a guy they could easily move on from, as soon as this season's finished and go in a different direction, because it gives them a better chance to win, or however they feel. So cautionary tale for Josh Dobbs. Don't get too over your skis. And I got to ask you, what is with the Minnesota Vikings with these feel-good quarterback stories for a year, right? You remember Case Keenum. If you go way back in time, you had Tavares Jackson. These dudes just come out of nowhere and play well for the Minnesota Vikings. I guess that's where you go to resurrect your quarterback career, huh?
I've always got down with the Minnesota Vikings, literally since Tavares Jackson. I thought that was one of the best stories. And then a couple years ago, I've always been a huge Case Keenum guy since his days down at Houston. And, I just love seeing what we're seeing out of Minnesota. And it's something you can hitch your wagon to this year too, Mike. I mean, last week I was all over Alexander Mattison, trying to get him everywhere, because I thought he was going to be a workhorse. We'd see a David Montgomery 2020-esque season for him and be a potential league winner. Didn't come to fruition there. I'm taking that back, but still something I want to hitch my wagon to.
I don't mind the Alexander Mattison thing. I kind of got into him when Cam Akers went down as well.
Yeah.
Now, we're not going to see him this week, more than likely. And it looks
such a great matchup, too. Such a great matchup.
It looks like we're going to be firing up Ty Chandler everywhere, which, unfortunately for Ty Chandler, was a guy that I really liked last year, and then he didn't really do too much this year, and his role was really diminished, and you're going, okay. I probably cut him about 3-4 weeks ago, right when Cam Akers was coming on. It's like, okay, it's Madison, it's Cam Akers. I play so much best ball, Seth. I can't roster a zero at running back like Ty Chandler. I just got to move on and go somewhere else. And now I'm like, you know what? You know, it'd be really great if I had Ty Chandler on my team this week. That'd be pretty awesome. Unfortunately for me, that's not going to happen, because people jumped on him, picked him up. Those rebuilders. Now they'll probably sell him. Hey, Mike, give me 2/3 and you can have Ty Chandler back for a dude I picked up for $0 on waivers. So lucky me.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I picked him up for 2 days and I dropped him for Tommy DeVito. Just not even competitive this year. It's just I don't want anyone else to have this guy. So I just picked him up, dropped Ty Chandler, and now I'm like, that'd be a great bargaining chip right now. It would be Ty Chandler, but that's what we do here.
Are you rostering any Michael Carter anywhere? Because that guy just got cut.
No, but I am rostering a shit ton of Breece Hall, so I'm very happy with that. I even have some Dalvin Cook on a couple teams as well that I've kind of just been hanging on to. So this was a surprise, man. Michael Carter seemed like a locker room guy a year ago. I don't know. Something had to have gone sour in that relationship there with the coaching staff, because this is kind of a big red flag to me. But in general, I think Izzy Bonaconda gets a little bit of a bump, but I think more than anything, Breece Hall is going to be that guy down the stretch, and I think that's what they're signaling here.
I did see a great tweet. I don't remember who had it, but it was just a little bit ago, and it was the whole tired versus wired thing. And the tired is Izzy Abanikanda. Let's go. And the wired is Breece Hall on third downs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what we want. That's what we demand, Robert Saleh. Give it to us.
I'm ready. I'm fucking ready, man. My teams they live and die by Breece Hall. It was a great 6-week stretch there, and then the last 2 I've just been trotting along, not doing too well without him. I need him to get back here, producing big time points for the guys.
All right, I got to ask you then, because there's not too many people out there I can go one for one on trutherism, on love. You're one of them. Sam fucking Howell. Sam Howell, baby. What are you doing with Sam Howell? Like, I don't even need to ask you if you're in on Sam Howell, because there's not too many more people I can list who have been in on Sam Howell, but you definitely are. What's your outlook for Sam Howell, especially for Dynasty? Like, is this an active guy you're going to go try to get now? Because the community hasn't caught up yet. They still value him as a turd.
Yeah. I put out a tweet yesterday. I got absolutely buried that there's only like 5 or 6 other quarterbacks I'd rather have redraft rest of the season than Sam Howell. Dynasty's a different ball game, though. I think why I like him so much this season is just the volume. I think Sam Howell's a solid quarterback. I think he's proving that right now that he is a top 20 quarterback in this league. The guy is cool under pressure. His composure is great. I love what he's doing in this Washington system under Eric Bieniemy. But what happens a year from now? Is it Bieniemy who's calling the shots in Washington? They need fucking Ron Rivera out of there. That guy is just
Please.
so he's terrible. He's like, I really think he's trying to lose games on purpose, just like with some of the timeouts he's calling on Sunday and just not watching it and being attentive with his team. But long-term Sam Howell, I'm not buying him either. I'm not. He just went for a first-round pick in a Superflex league the other day. I think he could be the Washington starter for the next 3 or 4 years. I think that is in the cards, but I think that he's always going to have a ceiling here long term, I guess. And maybe I'm down a little bit more long term for a guy who loves him in redraft, but just a completely different game to me.
Understandable, and I think that's going to be the holdback for a lot of people. Like that draft capital is going to linger for a while.
Yeah.
For those of you out there, just think back to Dak Prescott, right? And we talked about this on our Canton Bound show that'll be coming out on Thursday, so you guys would have already had an opportunity to hear this. But Dak Prescott in that 4th round draft capital lingered around for a while. Derek Carr,
Yep.
Russell Wilson, like these quarterbacks who don't go in the 1st round, that stuff lingers for a while. Now maybe not so much so Derek Carr because he was a high 2nd round pick. Mm-hmm. But, you get into the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round like Sam Howell, people hate you for a while. Unfortunately for a lot of people, though, they jumped right all over that Brock Purdy thing, Mr. Irrelevant pick, and all of a sudden draft capital didn't matter. Weird one, but hey.
Yeah.
Sam Howell, though, Seth, I might have to kick you off the train, man. I'm all in on Sam Howell, even in Dynasty long term.
What are you willing to give up for him right now?
I think a 1st and a 2nd for me in Superflex. And that's the peak. Like, I would imagine if you go out to your leagues and you offer a 1st and a 2nd for Sam Howell, that probably gets done 80% of the time, right?
I think almost a 1st and something small back would even do it as well.
You're talking about it from a redraft standpoint, too, but you're dead on, right? If you want to take a guess on the generic league settings on South Harmon Warp, like where he's at in Warp per game for the quarterback position.
Top 5?
Pretty damn close. That list you had was very accurate, right? Jalen Hurts, number 1. Josh Allen, number 2. Dak Prescott, who's come on like a bat out of hell these last few weeks. Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, C.J. Stroud, and then Sam Howell.
Wow.
He's above Tua.
He's not losing you games. He's just so consistent, man. If you can get 40-plus attempts from any quarterback, I'll honestly take it more times than not. And Sam Howell's a pretty damn good quarterback, and he has weapons around him, man. I wish it would be a little more stable and a little bit more, just to a couple of the pieces we need rather than hitting 10 targets to 10 different targets a game. But, I like what we're seeing, though, overall. I just don't think I can push all my chips in like you are right now.
I have no idea still to this day why Sam Howell didn't go higher in the NFL draft, how he slipped to the 5th round.
Yeah.
At one point, us in the know, people in the Devy space, the Dynasty space, this guy was talked about as the number 1 overall pick. Like,
wasn't that long ago? Yeah.
Even leading right up to the draft, man, Sam Howell, like the day of the draft, I remember streaming that. We're talking about how many quarterbacks are going in the 1st round, and I'm like, 5. Like, that's where the draft nicks were. That's where draft Twitter was at. It was going to be a lot of quarterbacks in round 1, and all we got was Kenny Pickett. That's all we got. But Sam Howell had talent, no doubt about it. So the draft capital really just kind of confused the hell out of me. and scared me off for a while of my Sam Howell love. Like, okay, I'm going to shut up. I'm talking about how great this guy was, and here he is going in the 5th round. My bad, people. My bad. My fault. But we're back, baby. We're back, Seth. I'm not taking shit no more. Sam Howell, go out and acquire him. He is playing lights out. Eric Bieniemy, you mentioned. If Ron Rivera moves on, I would imagine whatever coach comes in, either it's going to be Eric Bieniemy's team, or if they do bring in like a Bill Belichick that's kind of been rumored, or one of these other vet coaches that they seem to really like. I'm imagining Eric Bieniemy still in charge of the offense, and he has been a godsend for Sam Howell. Now, if you think about it, the way Sam Howell's playing, doesn't it kind of remind you of the first year of Patrick Mahomes?
It does.
With Eric Bieniemy?
100%, yeah.
Just saying, people, don't shoot the messenger. There's a little bit of correlation here.
Well, he's running the same offense, too. Let's be fair. Logan Thomas is getting targets out there like he's Kelce every week.
It's old, real old and crusty Travis Kelce. You love it. They're using Curtis Samuel in a lot of ways that they used to use Tyreek Hill kind of back in the day. Albeit the production's not the same, but you can still see some of those plays and moments. And Terry McLaurin is getting hella usage now. Jahan Dotson, unfortunately, apparently he's Mecole Hardman, right? Like he has 2 massive games and then just turd burgers left and right.
Yeah, probably the most frustrating player this season for sure. No one can get this guy right, and I'll admit it, man. Pie on my face. I went all in 8th, 9th round in redrafts. I have him everywhere, and he's done nothing but hurt my teams.
You don't mind him if you got a best ball team outside of the zeros, and then the explosive weeks have been nice. At least you get to capitalize on those. If you had him in lineup, I guarantee you nobody was starting on those weeks.
Hell no.
What? You had to be a savant, right? Or just had no other options, right? We've had some bye weeks.
The second week I saw him in a decent amount of lineups. I had to throw him in. I think it was week 8 was his breakout week. I had to throw him in that week just because I was desperate. It was in Scott Fishbowl, pretty deep league, but yeah, he has been absolutely atrocious. And like to drop a fucking donut in that game against Seattle, brilliant matchup. The game script got bonanzas. It was such a fun game to watch down the stretch. And every time you'd see someone shifty making a move, you say, "Oh my God, there's goes Jahan Dotson." No, it's Diami Brown. What the fuck's happening? Yeah.
Or you watch those games and you're like, fuck, Brian Pringle is still in the Pringle. Brian, who gives a shit? Pringle can is still in the league. What the hell are we doing? Look at that little guy.
Gibson is looking like Jahmyr Gibbs half the time. Like, yeah,
Let's go.
It's crazy. Washington's a fun watch. Like I know they're not a good football team by any means, but they are a fun ass watch. Like probably if you just want to relax and have a good time, throw on a Washington Commanders game. Because you're going to see Sam Howell chuck it all over the fucking yard right now.
So I got to ask you then. We'll put your feet to the fire. Dynasty question then.
Yeah.
We know your love for redraft. There's not a lot of quarterbacks, and I'm with you. There's not a lot of quarterbacks in redraft for the rest of the year. You want more than Sam Howell, period. The list is very, very small. But dynasty-wise, you have the opportunity to flip a Brock Purdy into a Sam Howell. Are you taking it?
Yeah, how? Tell me how.
There you go, man. Keep Trade Cut loves Brock Purdy, man. The people at Keep Trade Cut do, and I just use that as my general consensus because it's the best we have for consensus community dynasty ranks.
Okay.
To get a sense of value, Brock Purdy way above Sam Howell.
Yeah.
Way
Pretty
above.
much every trade chart, every trade evaluator I've seen out there as well has Purdy well above him. I'll take Sam Howell in the piece, I think, right now. Whatever that means. I have a couple Jordan Love stocks out there. I'm also trying to trade into Sam Howell. I don't know what the perception is right now of Jordan Love. It's changed a lot in the last month.
Yeah.
If you could have made that trade early October, you were sitting real pretty. But I think those are the types of trades I'm willing to make. And I don't know about you too, but I'm willing to take Sam Howell in a piece and get out of Bryce Young if I have any Bryce Young. I don't. But he's someone I'm honestly worried about long-term as well.
I think I'm with you. I do preach patience for rookie quarterbacks because not everybody's going to come in and be C.J. Stroud or Justin Herbert before them. A lot of these guys struggle. We watched Trevor Lawrence mightily struggle his rookie year and then have a really good second year, and now he's back to being shit. So we'll get to him in a second. But preach a little bit of patience with rookie quarterbacks. I think probably the most concerning thing for me with Bryce Young before I'll really start being like, hey, people, don't panic, is I got to see what they do in the offseason for this wide receiver position because it's not coming through the draft. Unfortunately, they traded away their first-round pick, which is going to be really high. So
Oh, they
No-
could have got Marvin Harrison Jr.
No pairing of Bryce Young with Marv, which
Yeah.
would have been amazing for us. Instead, not that it's bad, but we're probably going to end up with Marv with Kyler, which I'm okay with. I'm okay with, people. I'm completely fine with that one as well. But I got to see what they do, like how they shore this up. Maybe they get a T. Higgins in free agency if the Bengals can't afford to franchise tag him. We'll kind of see how that works out. But a little bit of patience with Bryce Young. The only thing that I'll take a victory lap about Bryce Young is Adam and I always talk about this all the time, is if you're building a dynasty contender, don't rely on rookies as like those pieces, right? There's a lot of people who just plug Bryce Young into their Superflex spot and we're like, well, we're good. This is a contending team. And now you're seeing shit. Shit, I hope I have a Josh Dobbs, or I hope I can get a Sam Howell laying around. Like, please. Me out.
Rookies should be the pleasant surprise on your team.
Yes.
You should always go in, kind of as them being the plan B if things don't go right with the plan A. And I think that's a smart way to look at it, because I think too many times we get really obsessed with these picks and collecting them, and then we dish them out. We get the players and we want to plug them in right from the jump. And as we've seen, man, like rookies are going to pop more times than not. I feel like in today's NFL, if you have pretty good draft capital, but it's going to take some time. I know there's a lot of people out there with Quentin Johnston that are just like clamoring for like, when is the time, and will there be a time? I think that's a discussion for another time.
All right. So Trevor Lawrence playing like ass.
Oh.
It's been brutal, been horrible. I think we have most scoring formats. He was right around 2 or 3 points this last week, which is just abysmal. Abysmal. That whole offense was horrible. Everybody except for Christian Kirk, you get a pass because you just do Christian Kirk things.
Thank you.
Everybody else sucked. Calvin sucked. Evan Ingram sucked. ETN sucked. Trevor surely sucked. The defense couldn't stop a wet fart.
No.
Unfortunately. So, Trevor Lawrence, though, let me ask you, is the panic meter high? Like, if you have some Trevor Lawrence right now, are you going, I got to get off this dude? Or are you going, too late? Like, I missed my window to sell when Trevor was at a good value. And now I don't want to take that discount, right? I don't want to sell him on eBay for first come, first serve, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not selling Trevor Lawrence like he's a bag of midweed. You know what I mean? This is still a guy. He is still dank as hell when it comes down to it. And I'll tell you what, man, the quicker the Jacksonville Jaguars get rid of Press Taylor calling this offense, the better. I think that is the issue half the time here. They finally started figuring out around week 3 or 4, like, hey, let's not run Trevor Etienne up the gut every time. Let's get him involved with some pitches and some counters and some ISOs. We saw some good stuff from Etienne down the stretch. We finally saw Christian Kirk getting involved after an abysmal week 1. Like, there's a lot of good with this Jacksonville offense, but I think until Doug Peterson is willing to admit that I think he was wrong with Press Taylor kind of bringing him in here, calling the shots in this offense, it's going to be mediocre for Trevor Lawrence, and something has to change. I think he just maybe needs to see someone, a throwing coach in the offseason, and figure out what's going on in the red zone. It's a lot of overthrows. It's a lot of out of bounds throws. He's missing. When you take all the touchdowns, Mike, that have gone to the right of the end zone, to the back of the end zone, that someone's had a toe on the line, I mean, it's probably 5 or 6 more touchdowns. He has 9 on the season. It's just been abysmal. But I think there's small things we can correct and make better. And I think they just met a really good San Francisco team coming off about 14 days rest, and we're just a little rusty and got whacked.
I'm not super panicked on him, right? But I do have him on contenders, at least for the rest of this year. I'm exploring to see what I can do. If the down tier still exists for me to get into a Dak Prescott and something awesome, if I could do a 1-for-1. Yeah, like, I'm good. I will ride this Dak Prescott hot hand, and you know how much I hate the Cowboys. I cannot stand Dallas, but fantasy, all bets are off, right? I want championships.
I don't believe the Dak Prescott thing right now.
Really?
Maybe I'm stuck in my own take lock, because I was one of those guys around week 4 and 5 in my redrafts dropping him because I couldn't stand to see what we were watching, but I just think it's a little bit of fool's gold, man. I think they're going to run into some tougher opponents down the stretch here. We're going to see Dak Prescott turn back into himself. I can't buy it. And I think now is a good time to buy Tony Pollard on the other side of it. I think I'm like the one person practicing a little patience there, actually going out and trying to make some offers for Pollard. It is a great stretch for running backs over the next 4 weeks, all plus matchups. So I like Pollard moving forward, despite him being a huge loser in week 10.
man, I'm just going to ride the heater of Dak, man. I'm going to buy high, I guess.
Okay.
If anybody will let me.
Yeah, you could be right, man. And he could be the type of quarterback in a super flex league you kind of invest in, you load up at that second quarterback position, and you ride into the sunset, into a championship. He very well could be. I just don't know. Mike McCarthy is a tough guy to figure out. I thought he was dead accurate in the offseason. He's like, we're not going to run up the score. We're going to slow things down, play complementary football. And they've tried a little bit, but now it's just, hey, kind of almost back to the Kellen Moore situation, but really featuring CeeDee Lamb, which is what I think makes Dak in this offense so good right now.
It is. You saw that switch kind of get flipped when they got their ass handed to them by San Francisco, when they got blown out, and Mike was out there just trying to run Tony Pollard up the middle every single play, which is stupid on his part. But I'm kind of glad they went back to it and they said, listen, who's our best playmaker? CeeDee Lamb. Well, let's get him the fucking football. Who's our second best playmaker? Well, Jake Ferguson has been a godsend for them at the tight end.
Yeah.
Like Dalton Schultz, who? No offense, Dalton Schultz, you're having a great year in Houston too.
Yeah.
But they didn't miss a beat, right? They just replaced him with another 1-for-1, and they're taking off. And then this past week, we even saw Brandon Cooks go off, which we have no idea why he's been disappearing this entire season. But congratulations for him being back. So I think they finally figured something out in Dallas. Now, schedule and how hard it gets, we'll see if Mike McCarthy goes back into his turtle shell. But until I'm told that Mike McCarthy has gone back into his turtle shell, I'm going to ride this Dak thing, because every single week he's coming out and he's the top 2, top 3 quarterback. And as long as he keeps throwing the ball to Mr. CeeDee Lamb, by all means, Dak Prescott. I will move Trevor Lawrence in a short-sighted move, I guess, for just this season, to try to get some actual production, because I can't keep starting a guy who's going to score 2 or 3 points in my Superflex spot when I have the possibility of getting a guy who's going to go for a 20 burger every single week.
Yeah, if you're in that situation, you have to start Trevor Lawrence. Like I do get the move in that situation, Mike, because it has just been brutal. And down the stretch, it is a really tough schedule for Lawrence too. It is very, very tough. Like he has Baltimore and Cleveland right around the corner after 2 divisional games. So you gotta be getting out in redraft, and you gotta be at least having another option if you are playing a Superflex Dynasty League as well.
So a guy who returned last week, and I was very happy to see back on the field, Kyler Murray, actually had a very good game. And if you just sort by WARP per game in generic leagues, he's already a top 10 quarterback in WARP per game. Now, this bodes the question for you, Seth. Do you think what he did last week is something that's sustainable for the rest of the year, or was this what the peak is and we're going to have inevitable regression back to a little bit rusty Kyler Murray?
I think this is kind of exactly what you're going to expect. 17 PPR points for week number 10. That's right about what I expected for Kyler Murray. I like that he carried the ball 6 times for 33 yards. I thought that was encouraging. I thought we'd see that rushing production drop a little bit. And he had a couple almost touchdowns. Marquise Brown had a case of the dropsies on Sundays. So that would have helped him a little bit as well. So I think it's kind of like right in that range. Low-end quarterback 1. He has some high-end upside. But the schedule isn't very kind to him either. He's got Houston, the Rams, those are fine. And then Pittsburgh, I don't love that matchup. I'm going to have some pressure coming off the edges there. Then he does get in that week 14 bye. San Francisco coming out of it, I don't love there. And then Chicago and Philly. So I think it's going to be about that, 15 to 17 points per game, I think is what he's projected for rest of season for me. So that's kind of how I see Murray rest of season. Do you like him a little bit more?
I do like Kyler. I'm not saying it's going to get any better. I'm a little bit worried there'll be a little bit of regression, or we're going to have a couple bad games, but it really has piqued my interest. Specifically, I have so many contenders, Seth, that have fucking Trevor Lawrence on him, who's absolutely killing me. So let me ask you, in Dynasty, if you're in that situation with a contender, would you move Trevor Lawrence for a Kyler Murray?
I don't know where Kyler Murray's going to play next year. And I know that sounds ludicrous, but I've been on this train for over a year now that I thought Caleb Williams would be the Arizona quarterback. Then when they traded for the Houston pick, I thought it would be even more likely. Well, we've seen Houston pick it up a little bit more. So now that kind of changes things. Do they go quarterback heavy early on, or do they take someone like Marvin Harrison Jr.? If that's in the cards like you predicted, I think I'm a lot more into Kyler Murray. I just don't know what's happening with him long term, honestly. I guess we're probably projecting. Who are we projecting to have the number 1 pick? The Bears, probably via Carolina. So they'll probably end up with Caleb, is what you're thinking?
So right now, the top 3 picks in the NFL, and this is with tiebreakers, is the Carolina pick, which would go to Chicago, the New York Giants, which is really hard to predict they're going to win another fucking game the rest of this year.
Hell yeah,
Danny DeVito does not look good playing quarterback. Right?
No,
He should stick to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. That was his peak, right? Or maybe the movie Twins. With
Go
Arnold
hang out with
Schwarzenegger.
your mom on the couch, buddy.
Right.
We don't need you.
The New England Patriots also own the tiebreaker over the Cardinals. And,
Wow. Okay.
we may be staring down the barrel of a Bailey Zappi-led Patriots offense. They can't get this shit figured out. So, and then it would be Arizona. So right now Arizona's in the 4 spot. And if Kyler's going to play like this, they got a win last week. Could they get another one?
I
Could
think
they get
they
another
could.
2?
I think at least another win's in the cards for him. Rams in week 12, I think that's maybe one you circle. Chicago week number 16. They're obviously going to be trying to probably get the number 1 pick. This is probably going to be, and I don't want to overstate it, but the most interesting draft we've seen in a long time, because we have teams up there that have what some believe as franchise quarterbacks. So what happens when we get one of the deepest QB classes in recent history? It's going to be fun as hell, and I think Kyler Murray is going to be a cog in it all.
It's going to be interesting to say. I don't really, for me, Seth, I don't really think they're going to be in the mix for a Caleb Williams or a Drake May, right? The 2 prize possessions. And this quarterback class has some depth, right? There's probably, I want to say 3-4 guys that you could project as QB3 of this class. And I think realistically we might end up with like 4 first-round quarterbacks. Just kind of feels right as the number. Do you take that massive cap hit for moving on from Kyler Murray for the QB3 or the QB4 in this class? And to me, logic would say, nah, we're good. We already paid Kyler the contract. We got to eat it. Like, would you absolutely do it for a Caleb Williams or a Drake May? Hell yeah. I can understand it. It's a tough pill to swallow to eat all that money, but hey, we got to do it, right? Like, this is game changing for us. To do it for the QB3 or 4 in this class, I would say personally, no. I don't think they would do it, and I think they would rather just build around Kyler and see if they could get this offense to a point where maybe they don't get a Marvin Harrison Jr., but this wide receiver class is absolutely fucking stacked. We might have 6, maybe 7 guys potentially in the first round at the wide receiver position in 2024. These guys are good, and they ball out of their minds. Malik Neighbors, Troy Franklin's awesome. Rome Odunze, who's like, the Walmart brand Marvin Harrison, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing, right? If you're going to be a knockoff of somebody, might as well be Marvelous Marv. I would say, too, with those 2 picks, right, you could see a scenario where they miss out on Marv. They get one of the best offensive tackles in the draft. They build the lineup.
Is going to be generational with what we've seen the last couple years at Penn State.
Right, and then with that later Houston pick, which is going to be, probably in the teens. I don't think it's going to be a 20s pick, but if it's later in the teens, you get the wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 of this class and pair them with Hollywood. We really like what we saw out of Trey McBride with Kyler this first week back.
Hell yeah.
All of a sudden, you're looking at an offense that ain't so bad, and we know the running back position, you can just fill that shit with. Just find a dude. just find somebody out there who's in free agency.
Hell, James Conner will come back and play. He loves the heat down there.
Oh, it's good for him, man. You remember when Shaq went to Phoenix back in the day too? Like, it just cures all, right? You go to Phoenix, all of a sudden you feel younger. That's why people retire down there.
Yes,
sir. That's why grandparents go down to Phoenix, Florida. You need that heat.
Palm Springs, baby.
But I think Kyler's actually, I don't know, is this faux pas to say? I think he's actually pretty safe for me in Arizona. Like, it's just feeling like this is trending in the direction where Kyler's going to be their guy, especially for 2024. So if that's the case, if you're going to tell me that he's getting 16, 17, 18 fantasy points, give or take, he's going to have a 20-pointer here and there for the rest of the year, and I can get off of Trevor Lawrence, boost my title shots, and the relative floor is actually pretty safe for a guy who's young, has talent, and has been a top 5, top 3 quarterback in the past, I think I'm doing it, Seth. I think I'm moving Trevor for Kyler. Give me Kyler, baby.
You're bringing me back in, and I'll be honest, I've been out on Kyler Murray for a couple seasons now. I've always thought the value is a little bit inflated, and so I've always kind of been looking to move off of Kyler Murray. I've done it in multiple leagues the last few seasons, but you're slowly bringing me back because you are making a great point if you are in a situation where you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence or you invested in a couple of these rookie quarterbacks that haven't panned out. Anthony Richardson's out for the season, or, Bryce Young just not quite there yet. So I think there was a lot of appeal to go after him. And I think if he is the guy in Arizona and they do get Marvin Harrison, that value just shoots right through the roof. And I think you just bought at a discount at this point.
That people are still a little down on Kyler, right?
Yeah.
Adam and I had this discussion the other day about Kyler and Anthony Richardson, and he brought up the good point that A-Rich is, he's kind of at his bottom dollar right now for value for Dynasty because he's not doing anything. You can't go up when you're not playing games. Right? Mm-hmm. Nobody really likes you. But come off season, that's a dude you're going to see just climb right back up. AR's back on the field. AR's throwing. AR's looking good, right? All those reports come in. The only thing I worry about Anthony Richardson is we've been down this road before with these uber athletic, high draft pick quarterbacks, and it ends horribly at times, right? And you're left holding the bag of shit. So for you, Anthony Richardson, while he's kind of at this generic 2 first range, still a top 10, top 11 quarterback for consensus ranks in Dynasty. Are you concerned at all, or are you just diamond handing the shit out of him like he's some GameStop?
Well, I wasn't until you put it so negatively there. But I'll be honest, I have a shit ton of Anthony Richardson pretty much in every Dynasty league I'm in right now. And I had him pretty much every redraft. He was one of my all-in selections this year. And so I'm definitely biased. I'll lead with that, Mike. But I love what we saw from him, in year one, man. It was a great season for him. He showed a lot more poise in the pocket than I think anyone thought he would have, coming from a Florida system that did not do really enough to maximize his talent. But I love Shane Steichen. I love where this Colts team is heading. I think they're only going to get better. I think they found out Alec Pierce is not an NFL wide receiver. They're going to shore up that. I think they're going to get some real tight ends here. Love me some Ogletree, love me some Mo Alley Cox, but I think they're going to continue to upgrade this team with Anthony Richardson over the next year. And while there's risk to it, just like you said, I think there's just as much risk to a guy like Lamar Jackson, a guy like Josh Allen, who's putting themselves and their bodies in the way as well. And he's young, and I think he can learn from these mistakes that he had here in year one about not getting down. And I hopefully he's talking to guys like Aaron Rodgers and some other people who, hey, they preach, get the fuck down, man. Like you got to preserve your career here. So I'm going to bank on Richardson getting smarter, getting wiser, and using some of that intellectual to make himself a more rounded player, not put himself at risk here in 2024.
Man, Adam's going to love to hear that, man. You guys could start a fan club in the Anthony Richardson fan club.
It's a fun one. It was such a fun ride. Let me tell you, Mike, those 4 weeks, I was loving life. You had some down moments when he left early in some games, but so a fun damn ride, and I'll be back in front of the line for next season as well.
I think the only player he fanboys harder for is Puka Nacua.
Okay.
That is
okay. Fair enough.
He is all in on Puka. I'm surprised we don't have a Puka jersey, but Adam's also kind of bad luck when he brings out a current player's jersey.
Oh, same.
It goes in the shitter, right? He killed Cam Akers. He's killed Nick Chubb. Unfortunately, that's
I killed Plexico Burress when he literally that night I had bought his jersey. And then we got that news. So I'm with you there. AB, Nate Washington, Deuce Staley, name a guy. I've burned him.
You nuked him. Oh no. Oh no. So Seth, let me get you out of here on this one. Right? You do a ton of redraft, and for me, redraft is okay. I'm a Dynasty boy through and through, but I do love talking to redraft guys because one part about Dynasty is I do like to win fucking championships, and I like to win money, and that Dynasty mindset, you can exploit it. So think about Dynasty values, just kind of baseline. Who are some shitters in Dynasty value for redraft people should be looking at for the contending teams? Like, is there anybody out there that stands out where you go, like, listen, I know this dude don't have shit in Dynasty value, but if I was in a redraft league, I'd love to have this dude on my team as an option to start.
Yeah, I think Tyler Lockett's someone I'm circling on my list. Great matchups down the stretch for Tyler Lockett. Can be acquired a little bit more now than what he was a week ago. Just had a pretty nice week, number 10. But the schedule's getting nice. The Seahawks are finally starting to put it together on offense a little bit as well. So he's someone I have circled. Another guy, Baker Mayfield, hold on to him. Hopefully you guys went out. If you need a low end quarterback, if you missed out on Josh Dobbs or Sam Howell, one of these guys we picked up off the waivers, Baker Mayfield's been excellent, man. Like, just really consistent with what he's giving you. He's going to turn the ball over some, but he's not going to lose this job. He's just going to continue plug away and have some big totals on the week. So those are probably two of my favorite. I'm trying to think of Gus Edwards. I think Gus Edwards, the Keaton Mitchell hype is at its peak right now. And I think Gus Edwards can continue to lock this job down. So send some feelers, I think, out for Gus Edwards right now if you're looking for a guy who could win you a chip.
Oh, I love these. The Baker one brings up a good point, though, right? Maybe the play, Seth, in Dynasty is you got Trevor Lawrence, you're a contender. You're shit in the bed because he ain't doing fucking anything.
Yeah.
Go see if you can just add Baker Mayfield on. Not down tier Trevor Lawrence to Baker Mayfield, but go outright acquire Baker Mayfield. And Tyler Lockett, I love what you said about the schedule. That's Koopa's guy. He was on Friday with Adam talking about warp outlook for the playoffs, and he mentioned the schedule and the pass-catching weapons, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett's dirt cheap, right? Don't go out and try to acquire DK Metcalf. People still love him. He's still an Adonis. But Tyler Lockett, he always gets shit on every single year. No one cares.
Every single year, yeah. I am encouraged with what we've been seeing from Lockett last couple weeks. Hopefully DK can get there. I still believe in DK too. I want to, man, but it's getting tougher and tougher.
I love it, Seth. This has been awesome to chop it up with you. I could do it for another 2 hours, but you got time. We got to get you out of here. Plug away everything you got. Yeah, I've been preaching to the people. I talk to it all the time about go check out In Between Media. Go check you guys out on YouTube. I said it when you were on the Spotlight series, which was so good. Go check that shit out if you haven't. The conversation I had with Seth about his journey through the fantasy space is awesome. One of the best people in this entire space. I enjoy listening to you guys all the time. Everything you guys do over there is amazing. The production quality, I love it. I'm a big fan. So go check it out. But Seth, plug away, buddy. Where can the people find you? Yeah. When can they find you? I always forget to ask that question too, because just come find me here. But shit, when's the live stream schedule? We got to know that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, first of all, Mike, I appreciate you having me on, man. What you guys have done at South Harmon is nothing short of spectacular. I love your community. I love every one you guys have on your shows every week, and just the different style of content I think you guys bring. It's not just your basic run-of-the-mill content, so I appreciate that. Appreciate the platform here tonight. If you want more of me, you can find me over at inbetweenmedia.com. We're also on YouTube at IBT_media. We are a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy sports and sports betting advice. We want to help you guys win championships. We want to help you guys win money on a weekly basis. However, we also want to make sure you guys are having fun as hell doing it and just living life to the fullest in the meantime. So we have a lot of good content over there. We focus mainly on PGA, NFL, and NASCAR content as far as sports. We also have some entertainment and lifestyle stuff you can find us doing as well. And we have the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast. That is our flagship program over there. We are live Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then we're back again on Friday for Feel Good Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we like to have fun, man. We like to chop it up. We mix a lot of lifestyle in. Like, if you guys want hard-hitting fantasy football analysis, don't come to us. But if you want to have good fantasy football analysis that also is going to have a flair of lifestyle and some fun with it, that's what we're here for, man.
It is more refined, more cultured South Harmon, all right?
I don't know about that.
Not as nuts. Not as nuts. All right, well, you guys are fantastic. And if you're listening to us, you're subscribed to us, there is no fucking reason you shouldn't be over In Between Media.
No fucking reason.
There is no reason that they shouldn't be over 1,000 subscribers the hour after this podcast comes out. Like, go do it. Go hit the sub. I want to see them over 1,000. And if you don't, I will find you.
You're a bad person if you don't.
I will Liam Neeson the shit out of you. But Seth, thank you so much for filling in for Adam. It has been incredible to chop it up with you. I'm glad we could get you on you had both of us on one of your shows at one point. I've had you on the Spotlight series, but every time we get to get together and get to do something, it's so incredible. So definitely when the off season rolls around, boy, we got to do this more.
Hell yeah.
We got to do this more, man. When everything's not so fucking crazy in a clusterfuck.
We'll catch our breath, we'll have a drink, and then we'll get after it. That's what I say.
I love it, buddy. That's going to do it here for the 4D Chess Dynasty. I'm stumbling over my shit. We got to get out of here. That's it. I'll see you back here, same time, same place next week. See ya.